I'm Jim Moore. I'm a retired federal agent, 25 years with ATF, the Organized Crime and Racketeering Strike Force, and Interpol, where I directed international investigations of robbery, rape, murder, terrorism. I'm here to introduce excerpts from an interview with Dennis Dechaine on March 22nd, 2004. As many of you know, Dennis Dechaine is serving a life sentence for the torture and strangulation murder of 12-year-old Sarah Cherry in July of 1988. He's serving a life sentence, and in Maine, life means until you're dead. Dennis has always maintained his innocence from the very beginning. He requested DNA tests before his trial, but it was denied. And over the years, the state has consistently concealed scientific evidence that would prove it physically impossible for Dennis to have committed this crime. I began looking into this case convinced that Dennis was guilty because I'd never seen the justice system in my 25 years in law enforcement make such an egregious mistake. But it didn't take long to find out that he couldn't be guilty, that the evidence proved him innocent. The evidence in this case, the state's evidence, proves that Dennis Dechaine was wrongfully convicted. If you want to understand all the ramifications and details of the case, you can read my book, Human Sacrifice. This isn't a sales pitch. I'm not taking any royalties for the book. Recently, under a new law, the Maine State Police Laboratory has been forced to test the blood found under Sarah Cherry's fingernails. And they found the DNA there of two persons, Sarah Cherry herself and a male person who is not Dennis Dechaine. For many people, this is the first time you'll get a chance to see and hear Dennis Dechaine, a real person, in the 16 years he's already served of his life sentence. If afterwards you agree with me that he deserves a trial where the jury hears all the evidence, join trial and error.
Well, I was actually born in Edmundston, New Brunswick, and I grew up in Madawaska, which is the northernmost town in the state, but they had no hospital there, so a lot of the kids were Canadian by birth because it was the nearest hospital. It's a small town, just over 3,000 people. Everybody knows everybody. It's a very close-knit community, very trusting. Nobody locks their doors. It's a great place to grow up. And I grew up in a wonderful family, very loving parents, great brothers that I cherish dearly, and good friends. Friends that the friends you make in a place like Madawaska, you have for your life. As we approached graduation, we both had different plans. I'd actually planned on going to Japan to teach Japanese businessmen English and French business language. And at the last minute, we realized, and Nancy was going on to grad school, but at the last minute we realized that if we stayed on this course, we'd never see each other again. So we abandoned those plans so we could stay together, and I said I have a friend in Maine, in Bodenham, who'd hire both of us and pay us well, and that was George Christopher, and we moved to Maine so we could stay together, and we eventually got married shortly thereafter, and bought our farm not long after that, and that was really an exciting time for us. We really loved doing what we did. The farm business was a lot of fun. We did greenhousing. We had a good mail order wreath business. We sold maple syrup, under our farm label. We marketed jams and honeys. We, grew tons of vegetables for sale at a produce stand, and we were into a lot of different things that we both really got excited about. So life was a lot of fun, and it was a lot of hard work, but it was really a lot of fun, and I miss that. I was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I did not kill Sarah Cherry. You know, they wanted to know what I knew about a missing girl, and that was the beginning of my nightmare. It's just, there are no recordings, there's no proof of anything except people saying I said stuff that I never did. So it was a very confusing time for me and scary. I mean, I was in a police car, parked in the Bowden Woods for basically 8 hours in the dark, and you know, my wife didn't know where I was, and they weren't telling her, and I was being subjected to what I now recognize as the good cop, bad cop treatment, and it was terrifying. It was a very terrifying ordeal. I really think at the outset that the police believed they had the right man. I don't think it was until after the forensic evaluation of the pickup truck arrived and I started screaming for DNA testing, that they may have started feeling that a mistake may have been made. At that point, they're so fully invested in this case, they don't want to back off. They, you know, picked their candidate, and they were bound and determined to keep me from getting any evidence to prove my innocence, to the point of, you know, after I was found, well, they had hair that they found at the crime scene, as one example, that they never tested genetically. I assume that they knew the hair wasn't mine, because they would have attributed it to me at trial. Just by looking at it, they can do some microscopic testing or whatever and make some general judgments. But as soon as I was convicted, they destroyed that hair to make sure that I'd never be able to test it genetically. That's the type of stuff that happened after my trial. You believe in a system your whole life, and then as soon as you get tangled up in it, you realize that it's not at all what you had been taught to believe it to be. I was perhaps one of the most naive defendants that they'd ever prosecuted. I went to trial believing wholeheartedly that the prosecution was going to help me arrive at the truth. It wasn't until I lost my direct appeal that I finally stopped believing that. That's how certain I was that the system worked. And it took two major blows before I finally abandoned you know, the hope for justice through the judicial system, at least through prosecutors. They had no interest in the truth. They fought us every step of the way. Every motion that my attorneys ever made to help arrive at the truth, they blocked, they argued, they fought. And so it's been an uphill battle. When Tom Conley came to see me and he said, you know, explained to me what DNA testing was, it was being done primarily in the California area. He described it to me, and I said, this is exactly what needs to be done in this case. And he said, well, it could be very expensive. And I said, if it costs money, we'll find the money, do it. And so he filed a motion asking for an extension of time so DNA testing could be done, and the judge wouldn't allow it. He did not want to delay the trial. In his words, and I'm paraphrasing, I haven't been able to prove that testing of the fingernail clippings taken from Sarah Cherry would be exculpatory. Since I can't prove that, then they're not going to allow it. Well, I couldn't prove it without having the testing done. It was a catch-22, and certainly it wouldn't have cost the taxpayers in the main a cent. I was willing to pay for it myself. But here I am 15 and a half years later, at, you know, in excess of $30,000 a year. This has been a very expensive mistake.